Remake Rewind.
Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened. I'm Mike, as always, and with me are my two co-hosts. First, I'm going to welcome back Double D after, a well-deserved break from the podcast. How you doing, little buddy?
I'm doing great, Mike. I'm happy to be back, more refreshed now. Thanks for the time off there. Missed you guys.
You're so fresh. So fresh. Goddamn fresh.
Fresh.
Oh.
Fresh.
And we've got Alex. How you doing, Alex?
Hey, that's it just sounded so sad when you got to.
Yeah, and we have Alex, I guess.
I didn't even say it like that. And we've got Alex.
Oh, all right. I'm back.
Hey, I missed you, Alex.
Hey, I missed you too,
I
David.
see you at work all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All right. So now that you ding dongs are back, I figured
I missed you, Mike.
we would we would watch, a classic movie, get us really back in the swing of things, and we decided to cover the 1980s classic Point Break. Point Break. What the fuck am I talking about?
Point Break is a classic.
It is a classic, and it has Patrick Swayze in it.
True.
We did Red Dawn and the 2012 remake Red Dawn. So first off, guys, what are your guys' history with these movies? Have you guys seen these before?
I have seen both of them.
History with these movies. Have you guys seen these before?
I have seen both of them. I don't recall the newer one as much as I remembered the first one, which is weird because I watched it a lot longer ago. But it's pretty much what I remembered.
Okay, what about you, Alex?
I've only seen the new one, and sadly, I purposely forgot it, and then I was forced to watch it again.
So
Forced it out of his mind,
we did. This was not what we originally intended to watch. We were gonna do True Lies and La Totale, which was the French version of True Lies, which came out a few years prior. But we could not find the original French version anywhere with subtitles. I found it on a sketchy Russian website, but it didn't have subtitles.
That's how these movies start, Mike.
Right. So we called an audible and decided to do
Red
Dawn. So I had seen the newer one a couple years ago. I got it on Redbox, and I had actually really wanted to see it and just didn't get around to it when it was in theaters. But I did see it, and I thought it was kind of like whatever when I saw it a few years ago. Definitely the original one, my dad really liked, but I didn't really remember. I only really remembered like the parts with them like in the snow, and that's a really small part of the movie. So I really didn't remember the original very much. So I was kind of excited to go back and watch some classic Swayze. And I was glad to go back and watch it, and I actually had a good time watching both these movies.
You did?
I've got a lot to say about both of these movies.
I'm glad you do have a lot to say, because I was talking to Alex about it, and he has some very choice words about them, but I don't think it's a lot to say. I have some choice words about it too. I do definitely see some problems in these movies, to say the least. But I found them entertaining. Yeah, I agree that they were entertaining. But we'll get to it.
Oh, the first one, definitely the first one's entertaining.
who's gonna summarize the first movie for us?
I'm gonna go ahead and do that since you guys missed me a bunch, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. I got Red Dawn 1984 featuring Patrick Swayze. A group of high school students become guerrilla fighters when their town is invaded by Cuban and Soviet soldiers at the beginning of World War III in this apocalyptic fantasy. The pressures of their desperate existence begin to wear away at the Wolverines' unity as the Soviet bloc forces hunt them down. Oh. That's by Keith Lowe.
Good job, Keith.
Yeah, pretty on point.
Way to go, Keith. Two really important milestones for this movie. Not milestones, but like records that this movie broke. So, or just at least important things about this movie. So this was the first PG-13 movie ever.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's hard to see.
Yeah, so if you, I don't know if you guys knew this, but back in the day, it was just PG, and rated R. So PG movies used to have nudity in them and swearing and pretty violent because it was what the PG-13 was. So they added the PG-13
because of Temple of Doom, right?
Because of Temple of Doom with the Kalima scenes. So yeah, they created the PG-13 one because of Temple of Doom. So this was the first movie to be released. Technically, there was a movie that was made before this movie that was rated PG-13, but it didn't get released in theaters. So this is credited as the first PG-13 movie in America.
That's very interesting.
The other record that this movie has is, at the time, it got the Guinness Book of World Records record for the most violent movie ever. Not necessarily in gore, but it had the most violent acts in any film up to that time. It had 134 acts of violence per hour, or 2.23 per minute.
Solid.
Yep.
Solid play, Red Dawn.
So, this movie... I'm going to let you guys talk for it. I'm going to let you talk first, Double D, since it's been a while. What are some highlights for you?
Well, one thing that stuck out to me that I totally forgot that I saw was Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, this was his first movie.
Yeah.
Charlie Sheen is great. I actually really enjoyed this movie. I mean, I feel like it didn't make a lot of sense, and it got
it's ludicrous.
Escalated very, very quickly. I mean, right off the bat, we have these
shit
paratroopers dropping in, and then they murder the teacher and start shooting up a school for no reason. I guess not no reason.
In this political climate, it's a little weird.
Yeah, it's
for all kinds of reasons. The school stuff, the Russian stuff. Yeah, it's insane. So like, it literally just has like one little scene before it gets going where it's just like Patrick Swayze dropping off Charlie Sheen and his friend Daryl. Charlie Sheen plays Matt. Patrick Swayze plays Jed. They're brothers, and he's just dropping them off at school. And like, they're in class, and all of a sudden you just see like a parachuter guy just dropping. So the teacher walks out. They blow the teacher away.
The teacher's like,
and then,
I think
hey, what's going on, guys?
Yeah,
right. And then like, all the students are lined up against the window, and then they just start machine gunning the window. So everyone drops, and you just see one dead kid hanging out the window.
Hanging out his head out the window.
And I'm like, holy shit. And then like, everyone's running around the school, and then they fire an RPG in the school, and then you see like another guy go flying.
But it was like totally chaotic. There was no organization to this attack. It was just shooting everyone.
It was insane. But this movie, I was just like, so Katrina was in the bath, like in the other room, and I got like, this movie's like 3 minutes in at this point. I'm like, what the fuck? Holy shit. Like, I did not expect it just to rip that early.
No, I like
this
that.
movie.
Yeah,
Rips.
It's like shit gets going.
And then it slows down for like 20-30 minutes, and then it just rips for like an hour straight.
Yeah, it was a very interesting choice of, I don't know, escalations. Like,
yeah, so the thing that's weird about this movie is, and I've got a few issues with this movie. I've got a few questions. Maybe I missed something. Maybe you guys will be able to answer it. But this movie,
like I'm on the same page with you,
is just insane. Like, even going back to the 80s, pre-internet, the satellites, aren't as good or as quick as they are now. I still find it absurd that they were able to get that far into the United States that quickly. So this movie took place in Colorado.
Yep.
And so it does have like a little like text opening scroll where it's like the worst harvest in Russia for 55 years. There were riots in Poland, so they invaded Poland. And then Cuba and Nicaragua raised 500,000 troops, and then they took out El Salvador, Honduras. The Green Party took over West Germany. They withdrew from NATO and all the nukes from European soil. Mexico had a revolution, and then NATO completely dissolves, and it's only the Chinese and the what is that sound?
Sounds like crickets.
I have crickets.
God damn it.
He has crickets. Why do you have crickets?
Do you have a reptile?
Yeah,
that you feed?
I do.
Oh, okay. You son of a bitch.
Interesting.
It's not on purpose.
But they find out that the only allies the United States still has is UK and China, but they don't want to help because they're afraid they're going to get nuked or something like that. So essentially, the North America is on its own. And they call it World War III, but if that's the case, and it's only like Cuba and Russia versus the United States, I don't really know if that counts as a world war.
We are the world, Mike. What are you talking about?
Oh, why don't you get a MAGA hat on?
Oh, man.
Yeah, so anyway, like basically in a nutshell, like we already talked about the opening scene, like it just rips.
Super
and then
quick.
like Swayze just like comes back to the school and picks up a couple kids and, starts driving out to like the sporting goods store who I think it's Danny's father. This movie was a little rough because they only said like a lot of the characters' names like once or twice.
Yeah.
And in this one, a lot of the characters didn't really have any kind of characteristics. Like they were just there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they
they
were
only
just
Yeah, so it's like Jed, played by Patrick Swayze, Matt, played by Charlie Sheen, and then there was a kid named Aardvark
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
and Robert were like the only ones who really had kind of any presence.
Substance.
And then later on, about halfway through the movie, you did get like the girls, Erica and Tony, played by
Which I didn't know was Leah Thompson.
Leah Thompson and Jennifer
it was.
Grey, like
Brings back
quintessential
memories.
'80s girls.
Yeah.
So the other ones, like Daryl, didn't have much. There was honestly, Danny didn't have much going on.
Yeah, no, all I really got was Robert and Charlie Sheen. Matt,
There was one
Matt,
character
yeah,
that's
yeah.
credited as Aardvark, but they also called him Arturo throughout the movie as well.
Yeah.
He had a little bit to do, but it was really like Robert was the only one that kind of had any kind of growth. Everybody else was just like, I didn't know their names until after the movie was over, and I looked everybody's names up.
By the way, when the dad was calling for Arturo, all I thought about was Overboard. I was like,
No.
I was like, wait, is this right? Oh, his name is Arturo.
Yeah.
Because you're like Arturo.
So yeah, so they end up. That's my note. Like I did like. There's one point where they're just driving through the chaos, and you see this bumper sticker that says "They can have my gun when they pry it from my cold dead hand," and then the camera pans down, and you just see like a dead guy holding a gun. It's like a soldier just pries the gun out of his hand.
This was a great movie, man. I was into this. This was like watching Commando again.
I was into it until there was a couple things that took me out of the movie, and I guess we can go.
There's a bunch of stuff that takes you out of the movie, but it was just super action movie.
Right.
I can't believe it was PG-13. If this was today, this was definitely rated R.
Yeah, because of all the blood.
Yeah,
Because PG-13 movies don't typically have blood.
all that violence.
I mean, they have this much violence. Like, you see people get
Like
killed,
Dark Knight.
and like if
Oh
you watch like
my God.
Captain America, Dark Knight, they have higher blood counts, higher body counts than this movie does. They just don't show blood. It's all implied.
Less fun.
Right. So one of the first things that kind of took me out of the movie, or it kind of slowed down the movie. So like the movie rips for like the first 15-20 minutes. Like they end up going to one of their friends' houses who like owns a sporting good, and they get a bunch of guns and supplies, and they go camp in the mountains. Well, and then a couple of the characters decide to go back into town like a month later, and there's like re-education camps, and like they just like spend a day in town, and it really slows down. And then they spend like another month camping before they have an incident where some soldiers come up on the mountain, and they end up having to kill some soldiers. So all of a sudden, Patrick Swayze's character Jed is just like, yeah, I kind of want to just keep killing these guys. And then like there's no training montage, there's nothing. Like they just become cold-blooded killers like that. The only person who kind of has a little bit is Robert. Like he doesn't want to do anything. Like he feels like terrible after they have to like kill those first soldiers. And then like they have him kill a buck and then drink its blood, and then all of a sudden he's like super Rambo dude.
Wow, man, I really love that callback in the new one, but we'll talk about that later.
First thing that took me out of the movie is they just decide, and they don't even explicitly say what they're gonna do. It's just at night one day, Patrick Swayze is like, we can't live up here forever. We got to do something. And like the kids are all afraid and scared because they, had their first brush with death because, these soldiers came up. And then the next day, like it doesn't have like any explanation, like we're going to do this, we're going to become gorillas. It's just the next day you see Jennifer Grey walking by a gas station, like with a bike. And then like these soldiers like try to like steal her basket. And the captain's like, yeah, just take her basket and let her go. And they put the basket in a tank, and she runs away, and it explodes.
It blows up.
Where the fuck did they get explosives?
Yeah. The only thing I could think of at that time is when they killed all those guys on the mountain, that there were stuff in that vehicle.
Possibly, but how
was
would
the
they know
only thing
how
I
to
could
set
think
up like a rigged explosion? Because like she runs away, they trigger an explosion.
And then they have all of these jump out little fucking holes.
Yeah,
like
when did they
trench
dig
holes.
those?
I have no idea. Then how do they set those up?
Right. I mean, like in theory, maybe they went down at night, dug some holes, made those hatches. But it's like they're not engineers. When did they learn how to do that? When did they?
It's not too difficult.
It's not super hard. You dig a hole and then you put some sticks and make a hatch. But
They were pretty good, though. I don't think they would have been able to make makeshift ones that were like
that
invisible as
good.
They were, yeah.
And then and then they had machine guns. Like, where did they get that? Like, they each had, there was like 5 or 6 of them with machine guns, but there was only 3 soldiers.
Maybe it wasn't
two
armory truck.
two
I
each,
don't
Mike.
know.
They have 2 hands.
So, like, that was the first thing, kind of like, eh. And then the movie just is a montage of them just doing all these various missions and hits. And it honestly, for a while, like, I started to get bored of all the action. It was almost like, do you know how with The Walking Dead, everybody kind of complained that it started getting a little slow and there wasn't enough action?
Repetitive.
It got repetitive. And so then in season 8, this isn't spoilers, like, the first 4 episodes is just nonstop action. It kind of got boring and from too much action. So I felt like this actually was a little bit too much for a little bit.
This is definitely, like, that kind of thing just makes it a movie for me to have on in the background while I do other stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, just sitting here watching it, it did just kind of get, like,
Honestly,
exhausting.
I felt like it was a little too long. Like, if it was, like, a little shorter, like, maybe lop off, like, 30 minutes.
And it wasn't even 2 hours.
Yeah, it was 1 hour and 54 minutes. But yeah, I remember texting you, like, it just took forever to watch, I felt.
Right. It's because the action so the thing is, when you watch, like, an action movie, you do need, like, your ups and downs, because you do get a little bit of adrenaline, but if you have, like, your adrenaline high going for too long, like, it's exhausting. Like, you need a little bit of, like, a reprieve, and you don't really get that.
Not even that, or maybe, like, just, like, good set pieces, like, that are, like,
right.
really memorable.
And different. Like, nothing is really all that different. So yeah, it wasn't all that great. And, like, you know, there's little things where, like, the only time where they kind of built a little bit of tension is when the soldiers show up that first time on the mountain and they find that arrow, and they're like, he goes, oh, this is like an Indian mountain, like, must be an Indian arrow. And they're like, but it's just right on the path. And they're like, no, it's, you know, they're all over the mountain. And he goes, yeah, but Indians didn't use steel. They're like, yeah, they did. They melted down the sabers of the, you know, the soldiers. They're like, yeah, but this is plastic. Like, no, that's bone polished and everything. And then Jennifer Grey's character just slides down the mountain.
Well, even before that, I like that he's trying to translate the sign. It's like, it's not even accurate.
It's not even close. And then he's talking about the arrow.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Right. And then, like, they only have, like, hunting rifles. And, like, as they're at dinner that night, you just see Charlie Sheen's character just sawing off the barrel of a hunting rifle. Like, it's not even a shotgun, and he's sawing off the barrel. Like, you don't saw
it. When you watch it, he's making no progress at all.
No. Well, and then, like, they're eating, and
they're complaining.
He gives the pot to, like, the girl, like, clean it, and she goes crazy. Like, Leon Todd's character is like, yeah, and, like, I don't even know what she said.
What he said was, "What's up your ass?" And they had implied that she had been raped before.
So
I think
they?
That's what that was.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
But
and so
before that, like, wasn't there, like, a scene where they're like, they're complaining that they don't have enough food? They're like, oh, we this is our last of our beans, and then they're like, we have a bunch of meat. They just shot a deer.
Yeah,
but well, that's all stuff that you shot.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, okay,
shoot hamburgers.
Yeah, like, how do you think it got there? Yeah, and the thing is, it's like, that's why they're there up in the mountains, is because they can survive up there.
Yeah.
So that convinces them, like, okay, I guess we'll go down and get more beans.
I really loved, like, that shot of the truck in the beginning before they were taking off was just full of soda.
Oh,
so much Coke and Sprite.
Yeah.
And everything. Well, and then the other thing that was kind of weird was, so there's, like, during that montage scene, like, you just see there's a point where they're, like, up on a ridge and a tank drives by, and, like, they just keep throwing, like, each one of them throws a grenade, and it just perfectly lands in open hatches, like they've been throwing grenades their entire lives.
Clink, clink. They're making, like, ricochet shots, and it was weird.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And then, like, this movie has little things where it's, like, September, October, November, and, like, it, you know, breaks up the acts. In November, they find, like, a soldier, like, an Air Force pilot that crashed. And Jed walks up to him, he's like, how'd you get yourself shot down, Colonel? And he's like, it was 5-1. I got 4. And they're like, I like you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, so, like, this movie, it slows down quite a bit again, where they, like, give exposition, like, all the stuff that we find out that China, you know, is sitting out, and everybody else is sitting out, and Russia came from the Bering Strait and then came down, which seems like they would have had to go all the way through Canada. It doesn't make any sense. Like, there's no way this would have been a surprise attack if they came by boat and plane over the Bering Strait, took over Alaska, went down to Canada. Like, unless that was the new one, I honestly can't remember.
I was surprised how many tanks they had.
They had a ton of tanks.
Yeah.
Well, no. So what I think happened, and they don't. So this one they don't really explain too much. But what I'm sure happened was they went to like military bases first, infiltrated bases, and took our tanks. Is probably what happened, but they don't really explain it. And there's like this weird romantic subplot with Leah Thompson's character Erica.
Yeah, that was
with the
strange.
soldier. She's like, "Tell me about your wife."
She's a lot like you. What the
And
hell?
he's
Like,
all
really
like,
weird.
like hitting her, and she's like flirting with him. I'm like, the fuck am I watching?
Yeah, it's super creepy because she's supposed to be in high school.
Yeah, and his first words are like, "Yeah, she's old like me."
Yeah.
Like what?
What? Yeah, it's super weird. And so, like, he takes them on a few runs. Like, he tells them, like, hey, you guys are about 40 miles from, like, safety, like the American free zone. And so he, like, wants to get there. And so they do, like, a couple little, like, raids with him. And then he's like, yeah, I should probably go now. So they, like, show up on, like, this border. And, like, randomly a tank pops up. And, like, this is the first time we have, like, a death in the movie. And it's, like, an hour and 20 minutes into the movie. Like, this kid freaks out and, like, draws the tank's attention on accident because he starts freaking out and screaming. So the soldier dude, like, he gets up on a tank and is trying to, like, draw the attention away. And then Arturo jumps up and, like, is hanging on the barrel of the tank and then just gets shot.
Yeah. Just gets riddled with bullets from another tank.
Yeah, it's great. And then at that point, some of them want to quit. It is what it is. And then this is the next part that really took me out of the movie that made no sense. So the big twist in the movie is Daryl is the son of the mayor, and one day, like, they're fighting, and this whole thing doesn't make sense because these guys are merciless. They kill every soldier they can. They don't do any kind of, like, taking prisoners or anything. But, you know, they get attacked at night, and then they end up capturing a soldier, and, like, they have, like, a box that has, like, a little beacon in it, and the beacon leads them straight to Daryl.
Yeah.
And it turns out Daryl was, like, a bitch. And he goes down and he goes down, and his dad turned him in. So he goes to his dad. His dad turned him in to the soldiers, and they made him swallow the tracker and then head back up. And then it's like the problem that I have with that is they have vehicles that they're using to get in and out of town. They're up in the mountains. There's no way he gets to town quickly enough and then back
in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night without being seen.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
That wouldn't happen.
You're right. So
but
that
also
kind of
they have
bothered
this
me.
huge ambush set up for these people that are coming for him. It's like gnarly how well they took care of those people.
Well, and then so like it's just a few minutes later, and then like helicopters come and it kills Robert. He fires on. This part didn't make sense either. So like all these helicopters come and immediately shoots Tony. And, you know, that's Jennifer Grey's character. So she falls to the ground, and Jed goes and picks her up.
Are we not going to talk? Like, I kind of talk about how they treated Darrow, and they like just killed him.
Oh yeah. That go ahead, Alex. Tell us all about that.
Oh no, like I felt bad for the guy because I'm like, it's not really his fault, but like
it is his fault.
I mean, his dad turned him in.
Yeah, but he still went down there.
They could have like had it where like
he got scared. He went down there. He put them all at risk by going down there in the first place. Even if he didn't get a tracker, the fact that they could have followed him, like going to his father, who they know is a collaborator with the Koreans and the Cubans.
He definitely
like
didn't
he
have
got
to
them.
Kill him though, or that's
the thing.
Danny didn't have to kill him.
Well, no, Danny's not the one who killed him. Robert's the one who killed him.
Robert.
So that's the whole point. Is Robert went from being a bitch to like this stone cold killer. So
because he lost his parents, right?
Right. So he lost his parents, and you also find out like he's the guy who's like every time like they see civilians, Wolverines.
Yeah.
So Jed kills the soldier like right away. Yeah. He like does that, and he's about to kill Daryl.
Stops him.
Charlie Sheen's like, yeah, what's the difference between us and them, kind of thing. And it's like there's a pretty big difference still.
Yeah.
And so Jed does like back down. He decides not to do it, and then Robert just comes and blows his brains out.
Fuck this! He was gonna get us killed or whatever. Well, I mean,
right.
I don't think Robert really cared about much at that point.
But I
he
thought
didn't.
Something was gonna come of that. Like, oh, Robert's like losing his
battle hardened.
He is battle hardened because it shows later on. So this scene was ridiculous. So like these two attack helicopters come, and they're on horses.
They take all that food.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fruit. Yeah.
So there's just like no goddamn way they don't all get killed by those helicopters. Like, you can't outrun those, but somehow a bunch of them do. Tony gets shot right away, and so Jed kind of drags her around. Robert grabs an RPG, and you see a helicopter just like hovering, and like a guy
He hits it though. Like
he doesn't hit it. He just hits the person.
The person in the middle.
So
really,
he like
that's
he
pretty
hits the
accurate.
person.
Yeah.
The person flies out. Well, the problem is the rocket doesn't explode in the helicopter. It explodes outside of the helicopter. So it didn't do anything other than kill one guy. So just another guy gets on the machine gun, and Robert puts down the thing, and he's just like, Wolverine.
Is it gonna fall? Is it falling down?
I thought so too. I'm like,
effects just bad.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. Like, did it explode in there, and we just didn't see the fireball? Because we've seen other explosions. And so, yeah, like, he's just like, Wolverines, and just gets riddled. I did like how they put the grenade under Jennifer Grey's body, so when they would move it, it would kill, like, anybody who'd, like, touched her.
See, I didn't understand that was her plan. I thought she was doing a Miles Dyson from Terminator 2, where she was holding on to it until she dies, and then she explodes.
I figured that's what it was. But yeah, they do that, and then, like, at that point, it's only Matt, Jed, Danny, and Erica left. And so for no reason at all, they're just like, yeah, we should probably put an end to this. And Matt's just like, Erica and Danny, you deserve to live more than anybody else. Matt is like, me and Jed we're too damaged by this. Like, we've got nothing. And it's like, I guess I can kind of get that, because Erica still technically has the grandparents, and we don't know about Danny. Like, Danny could, in theory, have family somewhere. So, like, we're going to make a distraction for you. And then, like, it's like this final scene, like, they go down and they're like solid snaking through the town. And then Matt just gets shot out of nowhere. It makes no sense. Like, they both, Jed and Matt jump on this train. Nobody can see them. And this one Russian soldier just gets out and just decides to start shooting at the train for no reason.
Yeah, he just shoots at the train.
There's no way he can know that they're there. And somehow he shoots Matt. Matt falls down. And then Jed was just an idiot at that point.
Just carries him off.
Well, no, it's not even like, so Jed, like, the guy follows the blood a little bit to like a little area that's just a bunch of supply crates, and then the soldier is like looking around, and then Jed gets the drop on him, and instead of shooting him, he goes, "You fucked with the wrong family." Or no, that's not. No, that's in the second movie. He goes,
he said, "You lose" or something like that.
That's what he said. Yeah, he says, "You lose," and then cocks the pistol. So the guy turns around and like somehow doesn't riddle him with bullets immediately. Like, he misses him a couple of times with the machine gun, and then Patrick Swayze fires like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like, and then he gets shot. Yeah, and then they just go and sit on a bench and then die together, him and Matt, and that's like the end of the movie.
My favorite part of that scene where he's walking through the park, when he like gets to the bench,
he drops Matt,
drops him, and he falls on top of him. Like, he definitely broke a rib or two,
right?
Like, that would have hurt.
And like the movie just ends, and then it ends with like a little plaque, like at the beginning of World War III, you know, some teenagers wrote the names of their fallen here, like they're pretty cool dudes.
Yeah,
and like that's the end of the movie.
Nation wouldn't perish.
So yeah, my big problems with the movie is just, how did they get to be such badass fighters out of nowhere? Where did they get to learn how to rig explosives, like timed explosives or explosives that detonate?
Yeah, there was a lot of things that were questionable about this movie, but I did think it was entertaining to a point.
It was entertaining. I do think that I could have used some act breaks. Like, there was just a period of time where it was like 45 minutes of just nonstop action.
Yeah,
that
but
got
also,
a little
their
tiring.
talking scenes weren't very inspirational. So
no, they really weren't. Well, once we brought it up at the beginning, like, really it was like 3 characters and then like 5 people that were just there to be cannon fodder.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was.
I don't know.
I liked it. I don't know. I enjoyed
it was just entertaining.
Like I said, it's like watching Commando. Like, it's not a great movie by any means, but it's fun to watch.
Let's see. So the only other stuff that I have for this was Charlie Sheen's first movie.
Charlie.
They did a 8-week
Tiger's
intensive
blood,
military training course before filming started. And Leah Thompson said this is the best time she's ever had on a movie set.
But it was because of Charlie.
It could be. I don't know. I actually live close to Leah Thompson. I've seen her twice in my neighborhood.
That doesn't sound creepy.
No, I mean I've just seen I saw her at a grocery store.
Outside her
No,
window.
I saw her at a grocery store,
just
and then
2 times.
one time Katrina and I were at this really nice breakfast joint called Jinky's Cafe, and it's they were at the table right next to us.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's just random. So that was pretty cool. Anything else you guys want to talk about, or move on to the other one?
I think we're ready to move on to the
All right, let's move on, bitches.
Alex, you got this one?
I got this one.
All right, do
it. The city of Spokane, Washington is awakened by a North Korean paratrooper invasion. Marine Corps veteran Jed Eckert and his civilian brother Matt escape with a group of friends to an isolated cabin in the woods, where they witness the execution of their father at the hands of the ruthless Captain Cho. The brothers unite with their friends to form a guerrilla resistance group, the Wolverines, to drive the invaders from their home. That's from Claudio Carvalho.
Nice.
Thanks,
So,
Claudio.
I think it's important that I give you this first bit of information before we start talking about the movie. So I don't know if you guys noticed this, but this is a very young Chris Hemsworth.
Yes.
So this was pre-Thor, but it came out the same year, or it came out a year after Thor came out.
Yes.
So this movie was actually filmed and completed in 2009. It was supposed to come out in 2009, but MGM was going bankrupt at the time, so they decided to delay the movie a little bit, and they were concerned that they wouldn't be able to play this movie in China, because obviously if China is the bad guys, they're not going to be able to do it. So originally the Chinese were going to invade the United States, and they were like, oh, well, then we're not going to be able to get the Chinese box office. So they changed it to Korea.
In post-production. And it cost them $1 million.
Post-production.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So, yeah, all the insignias and stuff like that changed. They did that digitally. I do have a huge problem with that. That's racist as fuck. That they just think they can substitute one Asian group for the other. Koreans and Chinese are not even remotely the same. They don't look the same. They don't talk the same. They have a completely different culture. China's communist, and they do have some weird leadership. But North Korea is just batshit insane. You can't compare them to anybody else. And just to be like, oh yeah, no, we're just going to change it to North Korea.
But can you say with confidence, Mike, they wouldn't invade the U.S. the exact same way?
I mean, this didn't make much sense. So this one, the whole explanation. So instead of having an opening scroll, they had footage, actual footage of Obama, Hillary Clinton, various world leaders, talking about economic downturn and, talking about North Korea and how much they present a threat to us and blah, 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 blah. And then it just cuts to Jed, played by Chris Hemsworth, listening to his brother's high school football game on the radio, and then walking out and watching his brother just showboating, being just kind of trying to do the whole thing himself. And then it's just the next day this invasion starts. But what's ridiculous about this is they do find out through the radio and other soldiers, and there are a few things that I think this movie did better, and I'll get to in a minute, but they do find out ultimately that the invasion came, that they had some non-nuclear electromagnetic pulses that took down all the communications, and that's why we didn't see them coming. So they just flew over from Korea. Now the thing that I'm okay, I can almost buy that they just put a ton of guys on a ton of planes, and they explained that Russia is the one that gave them all the planes and everything, and Korea actually has the 4th largest military in the world, North Korea.
Yeah.
So I can buy some of this, actually. The thing that I can't buy is that they said that, there was a joint venture between them and Russia, and that Russia came in and took over the eastern seaboard. So Korea took over from the northeast, and then also they came in up from Mexico as well. So they came in on commercial planes in Mexico, and then took over, and then they had some people infiltrate the bases. So all the tanks that they're using, if you notice, had American flags that they just put stickers on. Kind of thing. So, I can buy that part, actually. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief. It's still ludicrous, but I can suspend my disbelief that they just put hundreds of thousands of people on thousands of planes and just dropped them. It's absurd, but I can buy that. The thing I don't buy is that Russia came from the East Coast. It says that Russia took over the Northeast and Florida, and then came across, and then so it's like the middle of the country is still like no man's. So they say like Florida is an open war, and then something like Utah to the Dakotas down to like Colorado is like the American Freedom Zone, and then like the Deep South is occupied, but they're actively fighting, kind of thing. It's like, how the fuck did Russia, like, it would make more sense for Russia to come from the West as well, or do what they did in the first movie, and like they went from Alaska down to Canada, and from the north, not from the East Coast, because they're not going to fly the planes all the way across Russia, all the way across, the Middle East, all the way across Europe, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. That's just absurd.
I didn't really care.
That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I get where you're coming from, Mike, and I especially agree with what you're saying, because I feel like the point of this movie was to make more sense of the old movie, like just to make it more logical and like make it a progression instead of the escalation that the first one was.
And there are certain things I think this movie did a lot better. So like I remember thinking this movie was kind of bad, but I actually enjoyed it this time through. Like,
what?
I actually enjoyed it.
I mean, so I was talking to Alex a little bit about this earlier. Like, I do like that they made a lot more sense in this movie. Like, things were more logical. Things made sense. Things didn't escalate as quickly. As
and there was a little bit more plot to it. Like, there was things.
There was a lot more plot.
They had objectives.
Attacks, right?
It made sense. So, like, basically, in a nutshell, they're going through, and there was a couple like really badass shit when during this invasion too. Like I felt like this invasion was actually gnarlier and scarier and more frenetic. So
I liked the invasion in this one.
Yeah, so like they're just dropped around, they're like shooting people and everything. So they wake up in the morning and like the building, like the house is shaking, and then like a plane crashes right like next door to them. So Chris Hemsworth gets Matt, played by Josh Peck, into his like the truck, and there's no way they're brothers.
No, not at all. That was terrible casting.
Yeah. So they get in the truck and they're like driving around, and same thing. Some of the friends are jumping in the vehicle. The dad, like they run into the dad, and the dad's like, "Stay on my ass!" And then like the dad's car immediately gets shot to shit. So like Chris Hemsworth in his truck just rams the dad's car, and it hits like a parachuter guy, and he goes flying. And so that was pretty cool. And then like the dad's like, "Just go to the cabin, like go, and like just don't do anything else." And then Matt, played by Josh Peck, was like, "I need to go get Erica," and like Erica's whole family is being like held, and so they go and they start getting shot at. So Chris Hemsworth is just reversing, and then you had Josh Hutcherson, who plays Robert in this one, Daryl, and gets in there, and then like two other random dudes get in the back of the truck, and then you see like another car with like two other dudes. They're like, "What do we do?" And Chris Hemsworth, "Just follow me." But there's a part where they're just like gunning it. They're going like as fast as they possibly can down a straight road, and they see like going perpendicular to him a Jeep that has like the Colonel Cho, like the main bad guy, and they're like, "You're not gonna make it." He's like, I know, and he just keeps going, and like they T-bone the military Jeep in this Ford truck.
Way the guys in the back of that pickup truck survived.
Well, not all of them did though. So you see, I don't know. It's a very. I had to rewind it to see it. One kid goes flying. He goes hits the like the armored Humvee and like collapses the armored truck with his body. Like you just see a kid's body go flying and collapse the roof of an armored vehicle.
Oh man, the same kind of thing happened later in the movie with the school bus that like destroyed a armored Humvee, and I was very
that one I believe a little bit more because there's a lot of mass in there, and like
he was going that fast.
He was going fast,
not like
fast he was going fast enough.
Buckle that Humvee.
There's a lot of mass on on a bus. There's a lot of mass and a lot of ass.
We'll agree to disagree here.
Nah,
but I definitely think all those kids in the back of that pickup should have died.
Oh, those kids would have been. Yeah. Oh yeah. They all should have gone flying.
Like they're in the afterlife.
Like, Chris Hemsworth was like, "Are you guys all right?" They're like, anybody hurt?" Like, I don't know. I think we're fine. And so, so they end up going to, their cabin, and they immediately like, "Go, let's get an inventory of the food." And there's this one kid named Pete who's just like a prick, and I honestly think they should have done more with this character. I think that this part of the story could have been a little bit more interesting if they continued it. But at night they hear a noise like a Jeep, and they're like, "Oh shit, the military is coming to get us." So Jed goes out and he's like, hey, stay here, turn off the lights, Matt, I need you in here. He's like, no, I'm coming with you. He's like, Matt, I need you to like keep these kids like in control, right? And so he goes out and then somebody shoots and they like it hits this like Jeep and almost kills Chris Hemsworth. And so he yells like, Matt, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, it wasn't me. And it was this like Pete dude. And so he goes and has like a confrontation with Pete, and Pete's like, I'm not giving you my gun, fuck you, man, kind of thing. And so Chris Hemsworth just knocks him on his ass.
He takes the gun from him.
And then it's, you know, it's a couple more characters. So like Adrian Padalecki, who plays Tony, comes in and she's like, they don't really explain exactly what's going on. Like I read one note, like trivia thing that says she was older than Chris Hemsworth in real life, but was playing a high school student, and he's playing like a 20-something. Oh. But I think she was out of high school. I think she was probably like a couple years younger than him. Because like there's a scene where they like reminisce, and she's talking about how she had a crush on him for years. Yeah. I think she was probably like maybe like a freshman when he was a senior or something. Because he's supposed to be like 24 in this movie. He's in his mid-20s.
What were they talking about in the bar then? I could have sworn she said something about babysitting.
Well, no, so what she said was like they used to go camping together, and because he was the oldest, he was in charge of all the kids. But I think she was just a couple years younger. So she shows up, and then a girl named, I can't remember her name. Julie, and then a kid named Greg, and then she's like, yeah, they're tourists, and their dad just got killed, so I'm keeping an eye out for them. Yeah. So they have this big crew of like 10 plus kids. And the next morning they wake up and Pete like stole all their food and took them, went down to the
jerk.
Well, and then he turns them in. So like all the soldiers show up, and it has Daryl's dad, the mayor, and Jed and Matt's dad, who's like a cop.
Yeah.
And like they give the speech. The mayor's like, hey, turn yourselves in. And then the other dad is like, just kill all these guys. Like, even if it means you die, like just keep fighting, kind of thing. And like that's just kind of where the movie starts. And this is where I appreciate it, like because he was a military, you know, he was a Marine. This movie takes place, you know, it doesn't give you the definitive like September, October, November, December, January, but I think this movie takes place over the same amount of time.
They did do the montage.
They did the montage of them training, and then like they also had this thing where it's like, we're going to be guerrillas, we're going to be insurgents, like, and they go into town and they find a few like people they can trust who gives them like weapons, and they give them information on what's going on, and then they do tactics. So like I bought this a lot more, that they would be able to do this shit. And then also like they actively explain things where it's like it makes sense that they don't just go from like nobodies to killers. Like Robert, the first mission, like freezes, like he doesn't fire his gun at all, and then he throws up. And then they do the whole hunting scene.
To be honest, I didn't really care much about the kids in the remake compared to like the other one, because like I feel like there were kids that had like a dad that was like really hard on them, and he's like, oh, this is why I was hard on you guys, now you guys don't understand, avenge me.
Well, that was in the original, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is,
this one I didn't really care. Like, yes, it makes sense.
I think they made more. I cared more about the kids in this one because they had distinct personalities. We got to know them. They weren't just.
Matt was annoying. Like
Matt was annoying, and he was flawed.
Had a crush on Chris Hemsworth, which I don't.
But there's still, it's like that made you have that emotional attachment to him.
Yeah,
you
all
see,
I cared
he's a
about
later.
Was Jed and a little bit about Robert and Daryl. I didn't.
Daryl,
like
I like Daryl. I mean, he was, but the thing is, he was loyal to the cause, and like he sacrificed himself at the end of the movie.
He was gonna blow up his dad.
Yeah, he was totally willing to kill his dad. So like there was more stakes in this movie, and the kids had more to do. The only character, like Erica, I did not like, the Josh Peck's girlfriend, and like we'll talk more about their relationship, and I'm sure. But then you had like Julie and Greg, who are not in the original one, but like Greg had some stuff to do, Julie had some stuff to do. Like all these characters had their own thing they were doing. Like Julie was the medic, and she was like sewing people up, and they had more stuff to do. I cared more about these characters, and the thing is about with this one, like, they died throughout the movie, which was more realistic. Like, as
opposed to that one scene where Aardvark dies and everybody doesn't want to fight anymore.
And like the other thing about this one is like, once again, like the characters, I kind of, even though I don't think Josh Peck is a good actor, and I don't think they should have cast him as the brother. Like, why not? I think it would have made more sense to have like Josh Hutcherson be Matt, or actually get Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah, so I was going to say Liam Hemsworth.
That would have been great. The two brothers. Sense. But or what they could have done is just set up their relationship a bit differently. Like had Matt where he was confident when his brother was gone, because like that was the whole point. His brother was missing when their mom was dead, and make him like he was confident. And then when his brother came in back into their lives, he kind of falls apart more, and it's him dealing with that. But it's not like that.
Right.
He's just really
Well,
whiny.
Or just make him less of a douchebag.
Well, no,
Yeah.
he's just like he's selfish and he wants to do everything himself, and like at least there's an arc for that kind of thing. Now I think that the arc was a little too quick for Matt's character. So like basically in a nutshell, they find out that they're going to be able to kill like the leader dude, and the whole plan goes south because he sees his girlfriend on the bus, so he like blows the stuff early, and it causes the whole plan to collapse. And like Greg, like Heroes runs off to the bus, and like Greg goes to try to help him, and he gets shot, kind of thing. And you know, there were more stakes to this. And then the only real problem I had with it is once the American soldiers come in, there's something that I had a big issue with, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But then like Matt like disappears for 3 days because he has to contemplate like whether or not he's going to stay with the team or whatnot. And
where does he go?
He just goes to one of the other
right?
camps. So they mentioned that they set up like 3 different camps so that way they can hide in different places. So he just
How
goes
do
to
you
another
let-
camp.
Just let him go for 3 days in this climate. Like,
Right.
I would not let my brother disappear for 3 days.
Right.
Come back
be
with
okay
a
with it.
tracker. Psh, fuck that.
Well, no, that's not what
No,
happened.
it's
Right.
just-
Well,
it's-
so one of the things that kind of drives me crazy on this one is just like out of nowhere, the American soldiers show up, right? And
Oh yeah, the Alpha team.
yeah, the Alpha team shows up.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Negan.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I don't remember his name, but he's in Captain America,
But
and he's also in Spider-Man:
I
Homecoming.
also think it's funny. Yeah, one of the guys that usually plays a bad guy is a good guy in this one.
Matt
Yeah, I
Gerald.
get Matt Gerald. They show up and they were like, "We're looking for the Wolverines," and they're like, "Yep, that's us." And he's like immediately like,
That's what I'm
"Oh,"
afraid
like
was.
they're immediately like just super pissed off at these kids who have done a great job up to this point, right? And this is
Yeah.
a big problem that I have is every single time they went and did an attack, they had a plan. Like they had it down to timing. So like the first one that they do where Tony gets their attention and like runs away, and then they do the same thing where they pop out of hatches. Like Chris Hemsworth is like, we've got 40 seconds to get all their weapons and ammo kind of thing. Like every time they're doing a mission, it's like, all right, detonation at 90 seconds, detonation at 45 seconds. All right, the tank's going to be coming in 15 seconds. Like everything is by the book by the second, right?
Mhm.
So these American soldiers show up and tell them exactly what they need. Like, we need this little like suitcase that has their communication codes, right? So they're like, oh, okay, like let's go. So they go that night, no plan at all. They're like up on a roof, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna jump across the roof, kind of thing. So like Chris Hemsworth and Josh Peck jump off of a building, land on the other one, kill the guys, and so the soldiers are like, well, shit. So then they jump, and the next thing you know, the others are throwing a rope to them, and they like mount it so then the kids can like zip line down. And so the soldiers are like, oh, like the whole point is showing that these kids are actually better than the soldiers. But it's just kind of dumb because it's like still obviously they didn't have a plan. They're like, well, now what? Oh, we just follow the wire. And so it's like the entire movie they have these foolproof plans. The only time they fail is when somebody goes off the plan. So then they go and do this thing with no plan. And it was just
that was
kind of
weird.
yeah, it's super weird. And yeah, so that, and then ultimately they get, caught a couple different times and during this whole thing, but then they each break free a different time, and then Daryl gets stabbed, but he actually got a tracker, so like they're like having like a little party celebrating them like completing the mission. And it's kind of fucked up, but like, Josh Peck and Chris Hemsworth are having this like heart to heart, and they're like, he's like, I don't know how to do this, I'm not good at this, I'll do what, like give you praise, like you did a great job in this mission. And it's like, honestly, he didn't do that good. Like he just jumped off a third floor to go grab the suitcase kind of thing, and still didn't listen. He's like, get this suitcase out of here. And he's like, I'm not leaving you. Get it out of here. And then he gives it to somebody else so he can stay and keep fighting. Like he still didn't do what he was supposed to do. But he like gives them like this praise, and then he goes, I want to have a beer with you. And he's like, oh sweet, my first beer kind of thing. And he goes, where's yours? And it's like the girl took his beer, and he's like, go get it back. So he's just like walking, and then Chris Hemsworth just dies.
Nice.
Like there's just a
So
bullet
bad
from off
for
screen.
that dude.
I was like, oh, did he duck? Is he all right? I'm like, oh no,
He did.
they're
No, so like
crying.
I remember that he died in this movie. Like I knew he died, but I thought he died in like a fight, like a firefight, or like he sacrificed himself. Like it's kind of like sucks that it's just
disappointing death,
right. And then so they just like get out of this room, like they fight their way out of the building, and then they're just driving, and they're like they stop in the woods, and they're like, how the fuck did they find us? Like what's going on? And they're like, oh, they must have tracked us. And then Robert's just like, oh, Daryl, you didn't get stabbed, you got tracked.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
I mean, it was pretty obvious. I figured it. Like they stabbed it, and like you saw the thing come out. It was like a really thin thing, and like this, like the Russian soldiers like didn't even attempt to follow him. I figured it was a tracker.
Yeah, but when they were like cleaning him up, did they not notice it was a
like,
small circular stab?
Well, I think the thing is,
they like show the
yeah.
ring
Well, I
again. It
think
looks
the
like a pen
girls.
mark. I'm like, isn't that little?
Well, they did say like this is a weird stab wound. Like it's really deep, but it doesn't seem to be like doing much. So he was like, "Oh shit, they're gonna follow you guys." So like Adrian Padalecki was like, "You killed Jed," and like everyone's like, "No, he really did it. Like you need to chill, girl." And so he's just like, "Give me your machine gun. Like I'll hold them off," kind of thing. Right, and then the movie just ends. Like it just like they go and they drop off. Like it's
Josh
just Jeffrey
Peck,
Dean Morgan.
Like, he takes over or something like that.
Yeah, so this is the thing that's really
cool
dumb. So like Jeffrey Dean Morgan is like, hey, you guys, like I've got a helicopter. I can take you guys all to the safe zone. You guys have done enough. We have this. Like we're gonna start. Like things are gonna start to change. And Josh Peck is like, no, we're actually doing pretty good, even though we're just kids. Like we're gonna keep fighting. Because, and then he starts doing the speech that Chris Hemsworth did at the beginning of the movie to like convince them to fight. And then like it zooms out and you see them like recruiting a bunch of people, and then they go to the re-education camp and they like destroy that camp, and then it just cuts to black. And like during that speech, you don't see Daryl, so it's like safe to presume that Daryl died.
Oh wait, I realized we didn't talk about how Captain Cho died.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was stupid. That was another thing I had a problem with.
Oh yeah, with the Eckerd office.
Yeah. So they're at. So, like, where this suitcase is that they're going for is in the police station. And, you know, this part was kind of cool. So, Chris Hemsworth is, like, squaring off against the main dude. And he, like, the guy has a knife and he's, like, out of ammo.
He has, like, a
so,
chair.
the guy has a knife. Yeah, he breaks the chair apart and, like, straps the chair to his arm. So, he has, like, a shield from the knife. And they're just fighting. Right. It's just stupid. So, he ends up just, like, dodging around. And then he ends up just by luck at his dad's desk that has a safe in it,
on the bottom,
and he like pops in the code.
Oh my god!
There's no way that they didn't cut that safe open. Like there's just no way.
It was on the bottom of the desk.
There's no way they don't check all these desks. Lots of cops have those little guns.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't have.
There's
those in North Korea.
no goddamn way, and it's just so lucky he happens to be right at that desk.
Yeah.
They just
and
don't
then
have
he says you fuck with the wrong family.
safes.
Yeah, you fuck with the wrong family.
Bang 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 bang.
And then he takes off Captain Cho and it says Sergeant Eckert.
Yeah, it's that was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
One of the notes that I did write down, and we didn't talk about this part, there is a point where like right after when Matt gets back after like being gone for 3 days, and he shows up and he's like, I want to go in there, like Chris Hemsworth is super mad at you, and Julie's really pissed at you because her brother died trying to save you. And so like he just goes in there and says hi to everybody, and everyone's just completely okay with him. Like she gives him the peace sign. It's like, that's kind of weird. Like you fucked up everything to get your girlfriend.
Come on, dude.
Right. And so like that same night, they're having like this little heart to heart, Tony and Jed, and then bombs just start dropping, and then Jenny and Danny get killed, like as their cave that they're sleeping in collapses. And my note for this was, Julie was killed. That's not so bad. She didn't really have to mourn her brother for very long.
Oh, ouch. They could be
does that
together
make
again.
sense though? Because like I was actually watching this with my dad, and he was like, "Why are they running further in the cave?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess like yeah, wouldn't you worry about caving and having stuff falling?"
Running deeper in theory is, if it's a mine, like there could be another opening, but if you get further in, then there's more rock. Like that's going to be more stable, but at the front of the entrance, it's more likely to cave in, and you can't go into the open.
Yeah, you can't just go.
You're better off going further in, and like you can always try to move some of the rocks and rubble later, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, like I said, there was a lot of things I liked better about this. Like I liked the whole guerrilla warfare thing. I liked how you know, they had supply lines. I did like when they were training and they had like the shitty guns. And there was one that was like an Uzi, and Josh Hutcherson was like, "Oh, that's fucking cool." And Chris Hemsworth was like, "Yeah, if you're an idiot," kind of thing. And he like shoots it, and it's like it's got like a 10-foot spread, and he has to get like 5 feet away from a tree before he can like hit the tree consistently.
Yeah, that's
so
why
they had to go get the other guns. And I did like how like they were raiding, like they were doing smaller jobs just to get better weapons and stuff like that. Like it explains where they got their C4 and their grenades and stuff, and it just made sense. The one part that I also didn't like was in that final big thing where they're going to get the suitcase. Erica and Tony are on the roof shooting RPGs, but like Erica doesn't have any training. She was in like the concentration camps. Like she would be like, the whole point was they didn't start doing these like guerrilla stuff until they were like a unit. So like it showed, like there's a point where like during the training montage where Chris Hemsworth just fires a gun and they all freak out.
Wait, how did the Korean American soldier, did he die or is he still alive? I don't remember.
No, he got out. He was with them.
He was with
Him
them?
and Jeffrey Dean Morgan survived. It was only the ginger guy died.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't even see him get shot,
Yeah.
which was weird.
Actually, yeah,
I didn't see it. Like, you see him, like, he, like, dives, and you see him, like, slide, and then you see a window, and he's like, oh, shit, and then he just, like, fires his gun and kills 3 people, and then he just dies. He's, like, kind of thing. And, like, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, like, didn't care. Like, at one point, one of the guys was like, oh, we're sorry about your man. And he's like, oh, it's fine. Like, I don't know. Like, that was weird. But overall, like, I did like them. I actually enjoyed this movie. Like, honestly, I think it might be a better movie than the original.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, it had better elements. I think they created it better.
I think the original one just has the
not.
nostalgia value. I think that's
I
it.
don't even have that. Like, this is my first time watching it. I liked it more than...
I saw, like, I was reading a bunch of reviews and people saying things that they didn't like about this one, and it's like the same thing, like, there's no way those countries took over America, blah, 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 blah. It's like, any complaint you have about this movie, in terms of, like, the ludicrousness of the story, would be, like, you can say for the original one. They're both ludicrous. Like, they both make no sense.
Yeah. Let me ask
The
you
original
this,
one,
Mike.
what's up?
Would you stay and fight, or would you just, like, try to give yourself up?
No, if like soldiers came and invaded the country, I would fight back.
I think I would too. I don't think I would go down willingly, because I feel
Unless
like
it was like,
if I did give up, I would die anyway. So
right. Unless it was
take
something crazy like Norway or Denmark or Switzerland, who have like really good universal health care, and they're actually like the happiest countries in the
they're
world.
actually trying to liberate us.
Right. They're liberating. Now, if it was like Russia or Korea or China, yeah, I would fight back. But if it was like, yeah, Switzerland, Denmark, the Netherlands, like any of like the Norwegian, Denmark.
What if it was the Canadians?
Yeah, Justin. I would bow down to Justin Trudeau.
I love poutine.
What about you, Alex? What would you do?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the Canadians. Like, I would definitely hop on a moose. But yeah.
But what if it's the North Koreans?
Fuck it. I'll dress myself up like Chris Hemsworth, and we'll start fighting.
Get a USMC tattoo on my forearm.
So I'm gonna say I don't think this movie had to be remade.
No.
I do think this did enough stuff differently that I think they can justify it. I think in 2012, this was probably a better movie. Like today, it's definitely not a good movie, but I found it entertaining. I thought the action was pretty solid. I like Chris Hemsworth a lot. I think he's charismatic. I think he made up for Josh Peck.
I honestly think if they replace Josh Peck with Liam Hemsworth, this is infinitely better.
Or even made Josh Peck Robert and made Josh Hutcherson Matt.
Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. I like that.
Like, that would have been fine. Like, I think Josh Peck was just the worst part. He's not a good actor. He's got weird rat teeth.
And his hair, man. His hair just... Yeah, he did great there. Oh, man. I'll agree with you, Mike. I think it did have elements of, yes, it needed to be remade. Like, it did a lot of things well. It just wasn't a good movie, so I'm gonna say no, it didn't need to be remade.
I think it was a better movie than the original. I'll be one. I was reading a ton of reviews on IMDb, and there's so many like 1-star reviews and everything. But every once in a while, you'd see one, and people are like, I don't get why people are so hard on this movie. It is no less ridiculous, or it's no more ridiculous than the original. And I agree. I
had more.
Josh Hutcherson smacked Katrina with the door once. She worked with him on a TV show, Feature Man.
Oh, nice. I love
He's like
Man.
3'2".
Yeah, he's a little dude.
So yeah, I mean, Josh Hutcherson.
Oh.
So ultimately, I'm just gonna. I guess I'm in disagreement with you guys, but I honestly, yep, I disagree. Shut up, Katrina.
Wait, does Katrina agree with us?
She didn't watch these.
Good.
She didn't watch them. But no, I found the new one to be a tighter movie. Like
I just think it could have been better.
Oh, I don't disagree that it could have been better, and it's racist as fuck.
Oh yeah,
like the production for it is racist as fuck.
$1 million racist.
Yeah,
Well, the funny thing is that it still didn't even release in China.
Yeah.
So all that.
Well, it's because they were hoping to release it earlier, but then they just sat on it because MGM went bankrupt, and then they had a little bit of money from The Hobbit, and that's why they were able to release it. And then
also cash in on Hemsworth.
And they try to cash in on Hemsworth, which is that always happens when somebody blows up. You start seeing like old movies they did, like when after Spider-Man: Homecoming, like you started seeing like a bunch of old Tom Holland movies pop up on like Amazon Prime and stuff like that. Like that's what happens. All right, so well, I don't care because I enjoyed it. I actually had fun watching. I had fun watching both these movies, but I did find myself getting a little bored in the original one. Like I felt like I was getting fatigued from the action. Where this one, I felt like
this one
there was some
half an hour. It's like what I said. If they
this one is half an hour shorter.
An hour, the other one.
But even so, I feel the pacing was better. Like it had that like really hard start with the the invasion. And then it had like the training montage, and it did have like points. Yeah. Like this had some humor in it. Like there's a point where they like go and do like a raid, and Peter from the beginning of the movie sees Josh Peck, and he's like, "Hey, the Wolverines!" And then like Josh Peck like flips them off, and then like they kill that guy. And then there's points where they're like, they're reminiscing, like they're being kids. They're like, "What do you miss about the old days?" And one person's like, "I miss toilets that flush," and "I miss this," and one kid's like, "I miss Call of Duty," and like one of the other kids is like, "We're living Call of Duty. It sucks." Like they were more. There was a more human element in this movie.
I guess it's just those moments though that you mentioned.
But that makes a big difference though.
And then it's nothing but Matt fucking things up.
But there's still a different element to it, and there's an arc. Like in the original movie, besides Robert, who had an arc in that movie?
It's more. I feel like for the original,
answer the question, Alex? Who had an arc in that first movie?
I'll give you that. But like it's definitely more about just.
Okay, so who had an arc in the new movie? Chris Hemsworth changed a little bit. He realized he needed to be a good brother. You had Josh Peck changed from being just like a dickhead to becoming a leader. You had Robert, same thing. He went from being like a little bitch to being like a badass. You had Daryl. I'm saying, but there's more depth to the characters in this one than the original one. The action, like the story, made more sense.
This is Aquaman.
It's a better movie.
Oh.
Yeah, and you know what happened with Aquaman? You couldn't make any arguments with me, and you lose.
You lose.
You lose.
Can
notice this might be the smartest. So I'm just gonna say this might be the smartest Double D's ever been on the podcast because he just realized he's not going to argue with me because he knows I'm right.
I mean, you have valid points. I have no argument.
I'm right. Just say it. I'm right. D.
I think the original was entertaining and a better movie, but the new movie was a better put together movie.
So it's a better movie.
Better put together
in its own manner. Yes.
If you look at it from a pure filmmaking standpoint, like it is a better movie.
A better movie.
Yep.
In
there you go.
In a pure filmmaking standpoint, this is a better movie.
There you go. Fuck you, Alex. 2-1. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind. You can check out everything that's Remake Rewind related at MDXpods.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at MDXpods. You could also check out our other podcast, Ruin My Childhood. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/MDXpods. We put up every episode early, so you get early access. There's other rewards, and it really helps out the show. It helps us pay for the movies that we're renting. It helps us pay for the website and the hosting and advertising and whatnot. So if you like the show, chip in $1 or $2. It helps us out a lot.